My name is Christina.
Is Mandy.
Welcome to Zen Zestful.
We're two chicks who really fuck with yoga.
Today, we are going to be discussing folks that are new to yoga. Help me, I'm new to yoga. What the fuck do I do? Trying new things really does scare people. So we're going to talk about trying yoga for the first time. How do you get into yoga? And I want to pose 3 questions to give us something to think about as we move through this discussion. So question number 1, where the hell do I start? I don't fucking know, but we do know. We actually do know, and we will tell you. Number 2, what style of yoga is best for a beginner? I get this all the time. What style? Because I teach at a studio. I have people ask me this. I do teach a beginner class, which I have a real heart for, I have to say. I can help you out with this question, so can Mandy. Question number 3, what do you do if you're anxious trying something new?
Just do it. I was anxious about this.
The entire podcast? %. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got it.
What's the worst that's going to happen? Your coworkers are going to see this and be like, the fuck?
I mean, yeah. Fuck it.
Fuck it.
But we do have some advice for you in that context, in the context of yoga.
I think it gets harder to try new things the older you get. The thing is, yoga is, the benefits are, like, the research, the studies, everything shows how many benefits there are to yoga.
100%.
So it's not that people don't know that it's good for them. I think it's, for a lot of people, putting themselves in spaces that they're not comfortable with or they're unknown. I think a lot of people can say the same thing about trying a martial art. The weight training section of the gym, going to a new boxing gym, like whatever it is, like even going to a new job, anything new is scary. And the thing is, once you start, you realize nobody else there cares except for you.
Yep.
They're all in their own heads with their own shit. They're not sitting there thinking, oh, who's this new person?
Totally.
Yeah.
I think just diving right in then, in that vein of things, just trying something new is really the answer, right? And typically when somebody is wanting to try yoga, they're brand new to yoga, they think of asana. So asana is posture. What you think of when you are going to a yoga class, that is an asana class. Yoga is not all about asana. No. And I think that's where people get very confused. And that being said, I do think people have an inkling, even if they're not aware of it, that there is more to yoga than just asana. Because if you're seeking out yoga, you're not going to the gym, so you're not in a fitnessy kind of thing.
Unless you're doing yoga at a good life.
We'll get to that. Yeah. We'll get to that. But I think for people who are seeking yoga, they are seeking something besides just running, weightlifting. Like there's something more, but they don't necessarily know what that more is just yet, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's how you practice yoga is really up to you because there's the asana practice, but there's also pranayama, breath work, and dhyan, meditation. And those are 3 of the 8 limbs of yoga, which we'll get into in a later episode. But those are ways that you can all practice yoga. Those are all yogic practices, and they're all very different styles of practice.
And within the asana practices, you've got, well, now in the Western world, you've got vinyasa, you've got power yoga,
hatha,
cardio, sculpt yoga, you've got, your hatha yoga, your yin yoga, restorative yoga, beginner's yoga, and then you've got the advanced acro yoga. Then you've got ashtanga. Then you've got, I'm missing like 2 right now off the top of my head, but there's so many different styles. As a beginner, when you have someone who's very physically active, maybe they're a bodybuilder, maybe they're, CrossFit or a runner or whatever, and because they lead a fit lifestyle, they'll pick the more challenging one.
Yes.
Not realizing what it's actually going to make you do that you might necessarily know how to do because you've never used those muscles before.
Exactly. It's a very different way of moving. And it's actually really funny that you say that because I taught a power vinyasa flow class for almost 4 years. It recently switched to something else, but I had always such a diverse mix in that group. I would have straight up beginners come to a power flow class and then my regular students, or students that are familiar with a power flow class. But I was talking about this to another teacher at the studio, and we just thought it was really interesting that people who are beginners are like, yeah, I'm going to choose the power flow class. And I think people who are beginners choose that class because they think, yeah, I want to jump right into it. I want to have a good workout. But they don't realize that yoga the asana practice uses your body in a very different way. Yoga is so much about mobility. So back to what you're saying about weightlifters, it's funny if I have like guys in my class that are, I've had somebody...
Gym bros.
Yeah, gym bros. I've had gym bros come to my class before to stretch things out. And like, I didn't know this ahead of time. I'm thinking about one person in particular. And afterwards he's like, wow, this was supposed to be my off day from the gym.
It's my rest day.
The rest day, I'm like, you're here for a fucking power flow class, my dude. Like, we're not just,
we're not just going to lay here and
lay in there. So people have very different ideas as to what yoga is. And a lot of times people think you're just kind of laying there.
You also think that a lot of people stay away from the yin and restorative classes because they are slow and they require you to be more in tune with your body. And a lot of people find that the stillness is what they find more challenging. The number of people that I speak to that say, I can't just lay there with my thoughts. I can't just sit there with my thoughts. And that's not what you're doing essentially, but you kind of are when you're holding a pose in a yin class for, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
All you have is your thoughts and how much that pose sucks in that moment, right? So some people find that more challenging than they do moving for an hour straight.
Totally. Oh, for sure. And the first thing I'm going to say just in response to what you mentioned is that people don't even know what yin and restorative yoga are necessarily. I think that's the first, I'll say, barrier to people not practicing that. And then when they do realize that it is a slower moving class, I think you're exactly right. They think, oh, I'm not going to get a workout in. But they don't understand. I've heard somebody describe it this way. It's not a workout, it's a work in. Which I get it, but it kind of makes me cringe also.
I just cringed as you said it.
Yeah.
So I hope whoever said it isn't watching this.
But I get it, but it's like, ugh.
A lot of people don't understand the intricacies or even understand what fascia is in their body. And that's like fascia itself, we can do an entire episode on. But to unfuck your fascia requires you to do classes, the restorative and the yin classes, because if your fascia is restricted and dehydrated and it's warped around your joints and your muscles, you need to know where it's rigid and stuck, and the only way you can do that really is to sit with it.
Yeah.
And it's how do you know how restricted your mobility is or where that restriction is if you can't lay there in that pose?
100%.
But to your point about the gym bros in the power classes, a vinyasa class, it's constant movement. I remember one time I was teaching at the CrossFit gym, and someone had said, I came here to relax. This is like a lot of up down. I wasn't prepared for this up down, because you don't realize the toll that it's taking on your body as you're doing it, because the reason it's up down is to get that energy flowing through your body, and a lot of people don't realize that's what's happening, especially through things like sun salutations, which we can talk about the benefits of sun salutation.
Yeah,
but,
totally.
What do you recommend to someone who's brand new, has never been to a yoga studio, or maybe feels intimidated to go to a yoga studio because they associate it with, hippies and cults and...
Yeah, totally. Or on the other hand, skinny white chicks wearing their Lulus, their aloe, whatever, which I get it. I've seen both sides of that coin.
Do I need to buy Lulus and aloe?
God, no.
My favorite yoga classes are when I'm in sweatpants, baggy sweatpants.
Liberating, man. That's how I practice at home.
Baggy sweatpants, maybe a baggy t-shirt, maybe a sports bra, and zero fucks.
Yeah. I think that's a real just chill practice where you can focus in on what's happening. I mean, I will admit, I do love my Lululemons. They're plastic, but they're colorful and fun, and I'm a fashion girly. I do love my fashion stuff. So
hold off my crunch.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold off the crunch for you.
Yes.
But
thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
No problem.
But no, I really love as to
if I get into resistance to running, any sport where any sport really, I think a lot of people don't know that they haven't built connection between the mind and the body, and they don't have that awareness of what feels like what and in what area of my body. Yeah. So when you go to a yoga class, especially when you first start out, I think it's super crucial and super important to where the sensation I'm feeling and what is the sensation that I'm feeling. Because a lot of people can't differentiate between what's pain, what's tension, and what is just discomfort. Of course, it's going to be fucking uncomfortable. Yeah. You've never laid like this before.
Yeah. And that being said, there's obviously the physical element of that. Think about the mental element. And that's something that I talk to my students a lot about, especially because I like to teach up to a goal pose of the class. So if that goal pose, for example,
like a peak pose,
is a peak pose, is a balancing pose. And people often have a tendency to get frustrated when they can't do things right away, which is a very human experience. So say in my beginners class, I was teaching dancer's pose the other day, which involves you standing and you're tilting forward and there's a lot going on. You're balancing, your hips are opening. If you're lifting it, the chest is open. There's a lot going on. So yes, so I'll cue the pose first, but then I'll say, okay, notice how it feels to balance. Notice, what the mind is telling you, what sensations are coming up for you.
Fuck this shit.
Your mind is like, fuck this, and then your balance is gonna go. But
but it's instant.
It's instant, yeah. And what I try to remind students, be it in a beginner class or not a beginner class, is that the pose is a modality for you to connect your breath, your body, and your mind. The pose is not there for you to achieve. You are moving through these asanas and moving through these transitions, and you're learning about yourself as you do that. And it's not just physical. It's also, have I stopped breathing to try and do something hard? That's not going to work. You have to sustain the breath. Is my mind telling me, fuck this, or I'm going to fail, or like, this is too hard, or whatever? Listen to yourself and notice that you're having those thoughts, because people don't notice that they're having those thoughts.
They don't know that those are their thoughts.
Exactly.
I find the balancing poses, when I first started, I think it was tree pose. The challenge in, they tell you fix your gaze on something in front of you. Mm-hmm. When you fix your gaze on something in front of you and you start to breathe properly, like into your belly, and you're holding that pose, as you're trembling and shaking, but you're fixated on your breath, you can technically do that pose for a lot longer than you would have had you just stopped fixating on your breath and stopped fixing your gaze on something. The moment you divert your attention to the person 2 yoga mats away from you, or to the fact that you can't hold that pose, that's it, you're done.
Totally.
But a lot of people, when they're starting a pose, or I think my favorite is when they're looking at the yoga teacher and she'll demonstrate a pose, and automatically it's like, fuck's sakes, I can't do that. You already told yourself you can't do that.
Absolutely.
So now when you go into that pose, you're just awaiting for your body to not be able to do that pose and prove yourself right.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Speaking of, injuries that people get from yoga, it's usually as a result of not being aware of their bodies and not being aware of the fact that, like I said, what is discomfort, what is tension, what is pain. So when you keep practicing over time, you learn to understand your body better. And that's what the focus should be, is understanding where you're holding on to the tension.
Yeah.
Right. So, really understanding that when you're going into that first yoga class, the focus shouldn't be about how am I going to get to where the person 5 yoga mats away from me is. It's simply, where am I right now, and how to cultivate that mind-body awareness. And the way you do it is through the breath, because when you're inhaling and exhaling and holding the inhale, that's when you feel where it sucks. And you don't get to, you if you're doing it right, you can't even think about the person 2 yoga mats away from you or Costco, because you're sitting there thinking about, this is hard to hold. Yeah. And that's where I would recommend anybody that's starting out think about. For example, downward dog. There's so much going on in downward dog. It's not just plant your hand down. It's how do you claw your fingers? How do you take the weight off of your wrist? How do you press into the knuckles? How do you press into the fingertips? What does that feel like? Can you press into your fingertips? So little tiny things like that is what I think that people should focus on.
And to add on to that too, yoga is not achievement oriented.
No.
It's very much so about being with your body, being with your breath, finding that observation, noticing how it feels to move in and out of poses, to hold the poses. And that's what a yoga practice is, an asana practice. You're not there to succeed in your handstand or your headstand. It's not a goal, and that's not the point of yoga either. So you are there for yourself. It is an inward practice, but you're also doing it with all these other
that are around there with you, and they're at different places of their own journeys.
Exactly.
Are you going to go in there comparing how you can do something to someone who's been doing it for a decade?
100%.
Probably not, right? And then should you measure how successful you are at yoga by what it looks like?
The answer is no, you should not. No. But it's hard. It's hard for many people to, withhold that judgment of themselves.
And I find a lot of people, when they are laying in those, like when you're laying in Shavasana, for example, a lot of people find Shavasana so challenging because it requires you to be still.
Yes.
And it requires you to just lay there. And a lot of people can't lay there. Like, you'll notice when you're like going to turn the lights on or dim the lights and you kind of look around the room, the number of people, they just can't close their eyes.
Yeah. It's kind of eerie. Sometimes I walk by and people
just like staring at the ceiling, and
I'm like, okay.
You're working through something.
100%.
But as a teacher, we also can't, we have to be mindful about putting ourselves in that person's shoes, because you don't know what their internal dialogue is. For a lot of people, laying there with their thoughts is terrifying because it sends you into a whole other rabbit hole. Absolutely. Like, it's insane for someone who's never laid down with their thoughts to actually have to lay there with their thoughts.
Scary.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe moving on to some more, let's say, practical tidbits of knowledge. Etiquette. So this is specifically for in a studio. If you're in your home, do whatever you want. Hang off the fucking ceiling. Go crazy. Go wild. In terms of studio etiquette, please do not bring your phone into the studio space. And I know that some studios, more than others, have this as like a rule. But I honestly, Mandy, it drives me crazy when people bring the phones in. Or your watch. Whatever, have it on airplane mode for the watch. Like I wear my watch. It's my little DJ tool and timekeeper as I teach, and that's fine, but it's on airplane mode. If you were coming to a yoga class, you are setting aside an hour of your time for you. You've paid for it. You've shown up. You are there to do the work, whatever that means for you that day. And even if you have your phone flipped over and you're not looking at it, seeing it there is kind of like this tether to the real world, I'll say. And it's a distraction. It is a distraction whether or not the phone is up or down. It's there. Yeah. It should not be there, in my humble opinion.
I have a whole other conversation on that.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what? It distracts other people as well in the studio. I had somebody in the last few months who I'd never seen before. In the first 10 minutes of class, had flipped her phone over twice and had texted twice in the middle of class. And I was actually doing a virtual class. So it was hard for me, because I'm mic'd up, it was hard for me to go over, but I did. And I warned her twice. I was like, you cannot text in class. And to me, it was crazy. I get sometimes, if you have kids or whatever, that's a different conversation. If you are expecting a call, I still don't think it's appropriate to bring your phone in, but then maybe talk to the teacher and be like, hey, this is an extenuating circumstance. Right. But to be actively texting or picking up a call in class, to me, is so disrespectful, obviously to the teacher, obviously to those around you, but to yourself as well.
The fact that
I could rant about this for a very long time.
That's all. I'll let you know what. Next episode is on this shit.
Yes.
But the worst is when you've got a shavasana, like you're in shavasana, everybody's coming from a very intense hour. And shavasana, for those who don't do yoga, it's corpse pose, and it's your final pose. And depending on how rigorous or how long the class was, it's anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. So for 5 to 7 minutes, people are unwinding and coming back into their bodies, or maybe they're, just trying to find that moment of peace. and then you just have this obnoxious ringtone go off. And then the bag is always like tucked in some corner, and the person, and it's like, what are you gonna, like, now you're gonna run across the room, and your feet are gonna pitter patter across the floor, and now everybody's like awake, pretty much, right? So you've killed the vibe. Everyone, like, it's a courtesy thing.
It is.
And honestly, if you can't let go of that device because you are so important, just go to a different yoga class. Don't come to the one that's in that time slot where you are expected to be in other places. I always make it a point when I start the practice to say, just before we're doing the breath work and you're getting everybody to ground themselves in the beginning, I always get them to, connect to their breath first. And then as they're connecting to their breath and they're kind of relaxing, you can you look around the room and you see them melting into their mats, right? I always make it a point to say, leave the outside world outside where it belongs. Don't bring that shit in here.
Exactly. It's a sacred space.
It's sacred. Like when you go to jiu-jitsu, right? Or you go to karate, or you go to any martial art, you bow because it's sacred. And then you bow as you leave because it's sacred, and you don't turn your back, and you respect it. So why is it any different for a yoga studio? Because it's a sculpture, like a fucking cardio whatever class, like there's rules to this. And and I don't think that's not an etiquette thing. That should be a rule for yoga studios.
But you know what though, like the studio that I teach at, it is a rule, and that doesn't stop people from bringing it in.
Then you're just a fucking asshole, man. Like, come on, dude. like especially like studios in downtown where you're charging me up the ass for a membership, and I gotta go to yoga class where it's my 1 hour in my day to shut my brain off, and some person's shitty fucking like, so there's that. Don't step on other people's mats.
Don't step. And I find a lot of people who are newer to yoga don't understand like just how much of a big deal that is.
That's my mat.
That is the little sacred space that you have carved out for yourself.
Walking into my house with your shoes on.
Totally. And like from a maybe more practical point of view, my face is on my mat, my hands and my feet are on my mat. I don't want your hands and your feet on my mat where my face goes, or my hand. I don't know if you're dirty. You know what I mean? That is like your mat has your sweat, your, effort, your everything there. And it's even hopping over mats. I get sometimes it's unavoidable. It's a busy class, sure. But like, if it's avoidable, even that is kind of an infringement on somebody's personal space.
Other one is talking in class, like loudly. And I understand.
Had this the other day.
Okay, we're going to get to that. I can understand when, you're 15, 20 minutes early and you just want to like ease into the class and there's time and it's empty and there's like you and one, and you're whispering like this, and how are you? And blah, blah, blah. When you're having a full-on conversation about, when you and I had gone to Othership for a free flow, and we're trying to, so for those that are listening, Christina and I go to Othership where they do,
sauna, ice bath.
It is, I think it's culty, but this one class was great. I think as for our friend, everything is culty, right? Everything is culty. So it's a free flow class. We're laying on the sauna and we did the cold plunge, come back to the sauna, and we're just trying to meditate level, and it's hot as fuck. Yeah. And we got our eyes closed. We're sitting there cross-legged, and this chick is talking about her trip to Italy, but like at super high volume. Yep. Yeah. And I just remember you, me, and there was a guy behind us, and we all just kept looking at each other like, who's gonna be the one to tell this girl to shut the fuck up? Like, you don't, and look, for you it's a social thing, right? Like for her, right? Yeah. But be mindful of where you are. There are people coming here just to de-stress.
Absolutely.
But I think people forget how to navigate through society sometimes, and there's a time and place. A time and place to be loud and rowdy, but yoga spaces, places like Othership or anywhere where
No, I had two girls actually in my beginner class recently who were definitely new to yoga, but wouldn't stop talking to each other. And I went up to them and I told them to stop. I walked by them all the time. I felt like kind of like the teacher.
You are the teacher.
You're absolutely correct. I felt like a grade school teacher where you're walking past the kids. Yeah, right? But my final straw, which was kind of the final straw of the class, was in Shavasana. They started talking to each other.
No.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And so I went up between them and I was like, we do not talk in Shavasana, or like whatever I said. It was very disrespectful. And actually there was one of my regular students was next to one of the girls too. And at the end I was like, I'm sorry. I tried to, manage it as best I could. And he was very understanding, but it is very disruptive to others. It's not the place or the time.
That and recording yourself in a yoga class with other people around, because you also don't have their consent to be part of your Instagram video. And I keep seeing a lot of this where, a person will go to like the back area and set up their phone and you're recording your yoga practice for social media in a classroom setting with other people to show, whatever it is that you're doing. Yeah. Kind of like the one, very similar to the guy, like the gym bros that go to Reformer Pilates and they record themselves doing Reformer Pilates. And the thing is, like, it's a different vibe there.
Yes.
Right? You want to do that for your IG, whatever, go for it. But you're in a yoga studio where there's so many different people there. You don't know who's in the background, if they want to be on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I also think there's like a self-centeredness to that. Yeah. Because there is a time and place to record yourselves, but maybe not. Maybe not in that class.
Totally. I don't think there should be any videoing in a class. And another topic of conversation we can discuss perhaps in a later episode is when teachers take videos of their students in class, because I know that's a very divisive subject. Yeah. I personally am very against it. Yeah. I have not asked permission for anybody to be in a video or in a recording. Everybody is there and I'm asking them to be vulnerable with their breath and their bodies. I challenge people when I teach, and even if I'm not challenging people when I teach, I find that is a huge disregard of privacy, and I feel like people will not be bringing their full selves to their practice if there's a chance they might be filmed. So I can rant on about that for a while. That's my personal opinion on that.
When people are in Shavasana, made it up, like I had like this one class that I did where I had like candles set up and it just looked very like serene, but it was dark and it was dim, like very dim. And all I got was like, people's feet and legs, but you couldn't see who's in the class. That in that moment, like I took the picture, but later on looking back at it, I was like, okay, you can't see them, but obviously if they see my social media and they know like that's my leg, like they know they're in it, and it does feel very invasive. I do make a point to, I've never recorded my yoga class teaching, but I think that people need to be mindful of these things, because you're cool, you're an influencer and you're cool with putting your face out there, but not everybody lives in the same reality as you do.
Absolutely.
I think you had somebody recently who was a little, I would say, demanding.
well, yes, I would say perhaps, before we get to that story, one last little thing I'm going to put on our etiquette in general is just don't leave early. And this is something that just popped into my head the other day, because people started leaving my class not early, but as soon as I said namaste, a couple of them were out like a rocket. And I was like, oh, but it could have been worse. They could have tried leaving during Shavasana.
Or they could have just left in the middle of warrior pose.
Totally. So I would say, like, if you have somewhere to be, plan on the class ending at the time it's supposed to end and leave at that point. Do not leave during Shavasana. That is extremely disruptive to those around you, to yourself, to the teacher, to the whole vibe that you're, as a teacher creating as a relaxing space. Don't leave during Shavasana. No. Don't do it. No. But to move into what you were alluding to, my story.
I understand that we live in a big city, and there's a lot of different types of personalities in this city. Absolutely. And people who are used to getting their way and being demanding, and I don't want to use the word Karen because I have a friend whose name is Karen. I hate using this, but the Karens of the world, you know what the fuck I'm talking about, right? Sorry, Karen. But when you come into yoga, you come into a yoga class, it's not just your world and we're all just living in it.
Indeed.
It's you're there to share the space and share your practice with everyone else in that room. So it's not all about you and your little preferences. Yes. So to that point, continue with your story.
Yes, my story is exactly what you are describing. So in terms of our etiquette that we're going through, this piece of advice is do not threaten your yoga teacher. So let me tell you about a time where I was about to start a class. Very busy class, making sure everybody, has their props, is set up, ready to go, my music's ready, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot going on when you teach a class, as you well know. So I see a new student. They come up to me and they're like, oh, I have a lot of injuries and whatever. And the energy is already kind of a little bit off. It's kind of, frantic. And I'm like, okay, yeah, absolutely, no worries. You have your blocks, you have your blanket. Let me know what's going on. So they tell me, and I'm like, okay, yep, I'm gonna give modifications anyways. You're good to go. And then after that, they stop and they look up at the ceiling and they're like, are these pot lights? And I say yes. And they say, if you don't turn these pot lights off, I'm never coming back here again. And I look at them and I'm like, okay. Because what are my other options at this point?
Well, I can't change the electrical system.
I can't change the electrical system, and it is what it is. Like, there's no other option. So they repeat themselves again, and they're like, if you don't turn these pot lights off, I'm never coming back again. And it was a very aggressive tone.
The studio does have windows, right?
It does, yeah. The windows don't suffice. There's perimeter lighting of the room, which is, I find, actually very hard on my eyes personally. And it does not suffice to light a class.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And so again, I said, okay. And they go back to their mat. I have the lights dimmed when we begin. I bring the lights up as per usual when we're, now moving around our mat. And it was funny because in the spot where this person had set up their mat, there's actually no pot light right above that spot.
It's just in their vicinity.
It's in the vicinity.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. And so then this person was just not having a good day, or maybe a good life. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But even in the middle of a class, we're working through our flow, and we had done one side. We're now on the other side, and this person's like, are we gonna do that pose where we do this one thing next and then we move into the other thing? Whatever, they were describing the flow in the middle of the class.
Just out loud?
Out loud.
Okay.
Asking me if I have remembered the sequence.
To teach to your class.
To the class. And I said, yep, we're not at that point in the sequence yet. And whatever, they didn't say anything else afterwards. And so class is done. Always at the end of my classes, I say, please let me know if you have any questions, comments, feedback, whatever. I gave ample opportunity for this person to come up to me and address anything further they would like to have. Very long story short, I was complained about the front desk for not turning off the pot lights and practicing in darkness or having on a light that is painful to my eyes personally, and that does not light the class accordingly.
You gotta be realistic.
You gotta be realistic. And you know what? There's luxury wellness spaces in the city for sure. If you want to have that level of detail where you have control over the electrical or control over whatever.
Hire a private.
Yeah. Go to a studio that can facilitate not having pot lights in their ceiling. There's many things you can do. Pay the higher price point to, there's so much you can do. But honestly, to be threatened and then kind of bullied as a yoga teacher, I was like, oh. And I have to say, I was really proud of myself for how I handled it, because you know what? That's one person in a room of almost 30 people, and I have to protect the rest of my class as well. Like, they deserve a well-taught class. They deserve to see their hands in front of their faces. I can't, it's one person who isn't vibing with the pot lights, but I gotta make sure everybody else is, getting their best practice in.
What are some avenues for people who are, someone who has social anxiety, doesn't like to be in social settings, or someone who is really intimidated by the idea of going to a yoga studio, or frankly speaking, let's be real, the economy kind of sucks right now.
Yeah.
Someone who wants to reap the benefits of yoga but doesn't want to go to a yoga class.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's so many online offerings right now. Like COVID, I think we can all agree, just expanded the online world in terms of what is available. So, of course, there's YouTube. So many people love Yoga with Adrian.
Yeah, I love Yoga with Adrian.
Yeah, very accessible. There's also so many different online platforms. Like a lot of many yoga teachers on Instagram have their own online platforms. If there's somebody you really connect with, that's a great option. Even Alo Yoga has a huge course library, Apple Fitness, like
for whatever your skill level is.
Exactly, yeah. And it's just like, going to a studio, you'll have to try out different instructors and different styles and stuff, but you don't have to leave your home to have a practice by any means. Yeah. I would say there's pros and cons to both avenues, right?
Well, I mean, the obvious con is there's nobody in your living room to teach you if you're doing it the incorrect way.
Absolutely.
But I think personally, the best course of action if you are in that situation is just get a yoga mat, go in your living room, create that space, or your bedroom, or whatever it is, and just do it on your laptop or with your TV. Just basics with Yoga with Adrian, I think, are great because she goes at such a steady pace that it doesn't really feel like you're, doing a rigorous workout.
Yeah.
And then you build from that. And then when you are ready, hop in, just do a drop-in class to a yoga studio and just see where you're at, and just tell the teacher that, I've been doing this for a month. If you can just give me modifications. Because most teachers will hesitate to touch people they don't know and do modifications on people they don't know because
like alignment adjustments.
Yeah, because you don't know that person, you don't know how they're going to react, and you don't know what that might trigger for somebody, or the world that we live in. So I would strongly recommend hop on YouTube. And it's free. Like, why wouldn't you?
I would say one very huge benefit of going into a studio is that if you do want to push yourself more, just by having people around you and being in front of a teacher, you will naturally want to do better, want to push yourself a little bit more. So it depends what you're looking for in a practice, depends, how you're feeling that day. Those are two really important things to just kind of notice. In terms of different styles, or different limbs of yoga rather, I would say in a studio there's so much focus on asana, the posture practice. I always personally start off having an opening meditation and then adding in some pranayama in there. So that's an important part for me to have my students drop into the space. Online, you're going to have a little bit more, or at home rather, you're going to have a little bit more control and flexibility. Like you can do an asana practice, but then maybe you spend, 5 minutes doing a guided breath work, then maybe another 5 or 10 doing a guided meditation. Like you have that ability at home to be flexible with your time.
And you don't have to devote the entire 60 minutes to just moving and yoga.
Exactly.
Like 10 minutes of your 60 minutes could just be you laying there doing breath work.
So we've gone over a lot of things that anybody new to yoga can consider. I would say in your yoga journey, it's really important to be curious. It's really important to know that there is just so much to learn. Like I've been practicing for ages. I took my first class when I was 12. Obviously I didn't practice all the time every day when I was a teenager, but I'm always learning something new. And if ever I feel stuck, I ask myself why I feel stuck and what can I learn about stuck feeling.
And where is this coming from?
Exactly. It's honestly a practice that just keeps on giving. And it's important to listen to yourself and, understand where you want to go with your practice.
Yeah.
What's calling you? What's sustainable in order to yoga? Why are you there? Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you guys found value in this episode and you enjoyed this conversation, please like, share, and subscribe, or share it with someone you feel that would find value in it.
Thanks for being here.
Bye.
Thanks for being here.